Welcome back to JForrest English. I'm Jennifer, and today we're going to read an article together so you can learn a lot of advanced grammar, vocabulary, and expressions. And this article is from the Academic IELTS Reading Section 3. Let's get started. Our article is called Time Travel. Let's start the first section. Time travel took a small step away from science fiction and toward science. So you have here is science fiction. Fiction is the opposite of fact. So we have two categories. We have fiction, which is not real, like Harry Potter. And then we have nonfiction, which is real, like a historical biography or autobiography. I wrote those definitions here. So time travel took a step away from fiction, so away from not true and toward true. Here, notice how we have the word toward as a preposition. Two spellings are correct. You can say toward or towards with an S. So if you hear someone say towards with an S, it's not incorrect. Both of them are grammatically correct and acceptable. And towards science recently, when physicists discovered that subatomic particles known as neutrinos, just listen to my pronunciation, neutrinos, can exceed the speed of light. So if you exceed something, it means you've gone beyond it. Now, in this case, they're talking about speed. So to go beyond means to go faster than. If you exceeded your spending limit on your credit card, you've gone beyond that limit, which means you've spent more money than you have available. And notice here we have can, which is a modal verb, and then we have exceed, which is the base verb. So grammatically, you always have modal plus base verb, not the infinitive can to exceed. No, just can exceed. So modal plus base verb can exceed the speed of light. So these neutrinos, which are subatomic particles, don't worry, I don't know what a neutrino is. I don't really know what a subatomic particle is because I'm not a physicist, but I understand that they're particles and they can go faster than the speed of light. That is what I know based on the article. The unassuming particle. Unassuming is an adjective. And when you describe something as unassuming, it means it doesn't attract a lot of interest or attention. So maybe you're walking down a street and there's a restaurant, but it doesn't attract your interest or attention because maybe it's very small. It doesn't look very nice from the outside. There isn't a lot of decorations. The sign for the restaurant is very small, so you almost don't even notice the restaurant. So it's an unassuming restaurant, but you go in and the food is delicious, but you almost didn't notice it because it's unassuming. So these particles, these neutrinos, are unassuming. They don't attract a lot of attention or interest, likely because they're just very small. They're not considered something that's very important in science. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass. So this is simply giving us more information about what this particle is because the average person does not know what a neutrinos is. A physicist knows what this is, but the average person does not. So this is giving us more information on this particle. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass and able to penetrate. Now notice here, able to penetrate. Is something missing from this expression? And able to penetrate. The expression is to be able to. That's the full expression. But notice, it is electrically neutral and able to penetrate. So when we have and, you don't need to repeat the main verb. So you can say, for example, she is tall and thin. Okay? She is tall and thin. So you don't have to say she is tall and is thin. You can get rid of this main verb and just say she is tall and thin. The same thing is happening here. The only difference is instead of having one simple word like tall, we have all of this information. So it's easy to forget that this is also attached to able to, because the expression is not able to, it's be able to. Okay, so for example, you can't say she able to speak Japanese. You can't say that. This is grammatically incorrect because the verb to be is missing. So I'll put a frowny face and an X. She is able to speak Japanese. So now this is correct because we have to be able and then your infinitive. So that is what's happening here, and able to, but we're using the verb to be for both sections, before and after and. So don't forget that with able to. And able to penetrate, when you penetrate something, it simply means you go into. So let's say I'm putting cream on my skin. When the cream goes into my skin and you can no longer see it, it means the cream penetrated my skin. It went into my skin. So this neutron, this neutrinos can go into your skin. It can penetrate the human form. Undetected. So you don't see something going into your skin because they're not visible. They're so small that you can't see them. So that means undetected, not visible, not known, not visible, or not known, undetected. Is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. When you see this dash here and then another dash, it means you can remove all of the information between the dashes and the sentence would be grammatically correct. For example, let me read it without the information in blue. The unassuming particle is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. Grammatically correct. The information between the dashes is additional supplementary information. And in this case, it gives you more information about what the neutrinos is because, as I said, the average person just doesn't know. Don't worry about writing all this down because I summarize everything in the free lesson PDF. So you can look in the description below to download the free lesson PDF. Let's continue. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor. Let's take a look at hurtling. This means to move very fast, but it also implies in a dangerous way. So when these neutrinos were hurtling through the underground corridor, so imagine the corridor is going straight and the neutrinos are going very fast, but maybe they're banging against the sides of the walls. They're crashing into each other, not in an orderly, straight way. So you can use this, for example, with drivers. You might say the delivery driver hurtled up my driveway. So he came up your driveway, he drove up your driveway very quickly, but also very dangerously. So quickly, and maybe he's swerving. There's an object here. He's going right for it. Maybe you're standing here and he doesn't seem to be stopping. He hurtled up your driveway. Let's continue. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor toward their colleagues, remember, their colleagues 730 kilometers away in Italy. The neutrinos arrived promptly. Promptly is an adverb, and it means quickly, without delay, but also at the scheduled time. So for example, the meeting will start promptly at 9 a.m. Often when you schedule a meeting at 9, some people might come to the meeting 9:03, 9:05, just a little bit late. But if you say the meeting will start promptly at 9, I will start the presentation at 9:00, not 9:01 or 9:02, promptly at 9. So immediately at 9. So in this case, the neutrinos arrived promptly, so we can say quickly without delay. So promptly, in fact, that they triggered what scientists are calling the unthinkable. Let's look at triggered and unthinkable. So first, triggered. When something triggers something, it simply means it causes it to start. So the fact that the neutrinos traveled so promptly caused something else to start. And that something else is that scientists are now rethinking time travel. So that's the something. You could say, for example, speaking in public triggers my anxiety. So speaking in public causes my anxiety to start. I wrote that example here for you. Now, the unthinkable, this is when something is just so shocking or unlikely that it's difficult for you to imagine, difficult for you to actually form a picture. For example, a world without language would be unthinkable. Can you even contemplate, can you think about what life would be like if nobody spoke any language? Language was not invented. A human being never uttered, which means spoke, never uttered a word, never spoke a word, ever. Could you even imagine how we would interact with each other? It's unthinkable. It's so shocking and unlikely we can't even really think about it. So time travel is another thing that's just unthinkable. Can you imagine what life would be like if we could time travel? It's unthinkable. That everything they have learned, known, or taught stemming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. So this is the unthinkable, that everything that physicists know about their discipline, they may need to think about it again if time travel is possible. I want to point out the past simple here of the verb learn because you might be confused as to why it has a T. So learnt is the preferred spelling and pronunciation in British English. In American English, which I teach, the preferred spelling and pronunciation is learned. So notice we have a soft T here, learnt. And then in American, learned with a soft D, learned. Both of them are grammatically correct. It's just two countries prefer two different words. Everything they have learnt, known, or taught, stemming from. Here, to stem from simply means come from, to come from. Come from. So in this case, because it's in the gerund form, I'll put mine in the gerund form. Coming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. So when you add re in front of the verb, it means you do the verb again. So you need to consider again. So that means consider again because you add reconsidered. We need to consider it again. So let's say you asked your boss for a promotion and your boss said no. Maybe you could say, can you reconsider? Can you consider my proposal again? And most likely he'll say no, but hey, maybe he'll say, I guess I could reconsider. And then you can explain again why you deserve a promotion. And maybe this time your boss will say yes. So it's always possible for someone to reconsider. Let's continue. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers on TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of real English, add advanced expressions and advanced grammar to your speech so you sound fluent and natural. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. So you can look in the description for the link on how to learn more. Let's continue on. The issue at stake. So at stake is simply when something is being considered. So here, the issue being considered, the issue at stake, so being considered, is a tiny segment of time, precisely 60 nanoseconds. So now they're going to explain what 60 nanoseconds is because the average person who is not a physicist does not know. So 60 nanoseconds is 60 billionths of a second. So you have 1 second and then you divide that 1 second into billions and you take 60 of them. For me, I can't really comprehend what 60 billionths of a second is, to be honest, because a second is like that. And imagine you take 60 billionths of that second. It would be so fast. It's unthinkable. I can't even imagine what that would be. So notice I just used unthinkable. This is how much faster than the speed of light the neutrinos manage to go in their underground travels and at a consistent rate. Even allowing for a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second, this stands as proof that it is possible to race against light and win. So here, they're comparing the speed of the neutrinos to the speed of light, which is just so fast that you and I, average people, can't really understand how fast it is because it just happens so quickly. So they're just letting you know it happened faster than the speed of light. And this allowing for a margin of error, they're saying even if our calculation was incorrect, don't worry, it's still accurate. So they accounted for that. They allowed some miscalculation in their formula, and the neutrinos are still faster than the speed of light, even if their calculation is somewhat inaccurate. So that's a margin of error. You'll see this a lot in studies, scientific studies, research studies, a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second. The duration of the experiment, duration is the length. The duration of the experiment, the length of this experiment, the entire time of the experiment. So length or entire time of the experiment also accounted for. When you account for something, you simply consider it. So they considered that margin of error, that their calculation may be somewhat inaccurate. So to consider. Also accounted for, considered. So here, accounted for something. So notice the preposition, you account for something, but you consider something. So we don't use considered for, it's just considered because we don't need the preposition for. And considered and ruled out. The phrasal verb to rule something out is when you no longer have something as a possibility. So to no longer have an option as a possibility. So basically it means to exclude an option, to exclude an option. So let's say you are considering different options. Maybe you're going to give your team a promotion, give them an extra vacation day, or give them free lunch on Fridays. Those are your three options to show your support for your staff. But you're going to rule out promotions. You're going to no longer consider that as an option because you don't have the financial resources to offer promotions and it's very expensive. So you're going to rule out promotions. Now you just have two options to consider. So they ruled out any possible lunar effects. Lunar is the moon, so effects from the moon because the moon can influence time. And tidal bulges. I don't know what a bulge is. I assume it's similar to a wave, and tidal relates to the tide. So when the water goes in and out, that is called the tide. So tidal bulges in the Earth's crust. So this information is just to let you know that their calculation considered many different factors to understand if they are wrong. And they're still saying, even if we take all of this into account, consider all of this, the neutrinos are still faster than the speed of light. Let's continue. Nevertheless, the transition word nevertheless is used when you are going to have a contrast. So here they're talking about all the reasons why the neutrinos are faster than the speed of light. But now, because I have nevertheless, I know they're going to introduce evidence to say that this might not be true because there has to be a contrast. So this is a transition word used to introduce a contrasting point. Nevertheless, there's plenty of reason to remain skeptical. Skeptical means I'm not sure if I believe you, or I'm not sure if I believe this topic. I'm not sure if I believe that we can travel through time. I'm skeptical. So, not sure if the person can be trusted or believed. Person or information. In this case, it's the information they're presenting. Information can be trusted or believed. So, I'm skeptical. I'm not sure. According to Harvard University science historian Peter Galison, Albert Einstein, of course, Einstein's relativity theory has been pushed harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Pushed harder than, it means that every scientist has tried to prove that his theory is not correct. So they've pushed his theory harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Yet each prior challenge, prior means previous, so each challenge that had previously happened, previous. So you see this a lot in job interviews. Do you have any prior experience? Do you have any previous experience? So let me write that for you. Do you have any prior experience in Excel? So Excel is a Microsoft software for organizing data. Do you have any prior experience in Excel? Do you have any previous experience? Yet each prior challenge has come to no avail. So remember I said they've tried to prove that Einstein's theory is inaccurate or incorrect, but it's come to no avail, which means they have not been successful. So no avail means not successful. Let's review this example. I asked my boss for a promotion, but to no avail. So notice the expression is to no avail, and this means not successful. So I didn't get the promotion. My boss said no, but to no avail. I'm hopeful he'll reconsider. I'm hopeful, that's just another way of saying I hope he'll reconsider. So remember, we talked about this. Consider it again and change his decision. But he's skeptical. I don't know. I'm not sure if Jennifer's ready for a promotion. He's skeptical that I'm ready for a management position. So here we used a lot of expressions in one thought, one advanced thought. Let's continue. So is time travel just around the corner? When something is just around the corner, it means happening soon. Happening soon. So you could say, my vacation is just around the corner. Happening soon. So is time travel happening soon, just around the corner? The prospect is the idea that time travel is just around the corner. The prospect has certainly been wrenched much closer to the realm of possibility. This simply means moved closer to the realm of possibility, meaning that something is possible. So a simple way of saying this is the prospect has certainly been moved towards possibility. Now that a major physical hurdle, a hurdle is an obstacle, something that prevents you from achieving a goal. So an obstacle, hurdle, obstacle. The speed of light. So this is the obstacle, the hurdle for time travel. The fact that we need to travel faster than the speed of light. And so far, nothing has traveled faster than the speed of light until these neutrinos has been cleared. So to clear the hurdle means to get rid of it, to eliminate it. If particles, these neutrinos, if particles can travel faster than light, in theory, traveling back in time is possible. That's unthinkable, isn't it? How anyone harnesses that, to harness something is when you use something successfully, to use something successfully. Use something successfully. For example, we have now harnessed the power of the sun through solar panels. So you put a solar panel on the roof of your house and it harnesses the sun, the energy of the sun. It uses that energy successfully by then heating your house. So we've already harnessed many things in our environment. Why not time travel? How anyone harnesses that, so how anyone uses time travel successfully to some kind of helpful end is far beyond the scope of any modern technologies. Okay, so far beyond the scope of. When something is beyond the scope of, it means that it is not included in. Not included in. For example, teaching you about Einstein's theory of relativity is beyond the scope of this lesson, which means it's not included in this lesson. It doesn't mean it's not important. It's just beyond the scope of this lesson. It's not included in this lesson. So it's beyond the scope of any modern technology, however, and will be left to future generations to explore. When you leave something to someone, it means that you give the responsibility to someone else. So the future generations now have the responsibility to take the information from this article, the fact that these neutrinos can travel faster than the speed of light, and try to harness that, try to turn it into something tangible that we can use and benefit from. So that's not our responsibility. We're going to leave that to future generations to explore. So that's the end of the article. What I'll do now is I'll go to the beginning and I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Time travel. Time travel took a small step away from science fiction and towards science recently when physicists discovered that subatomic particles, known as neutrinos, can exceed the speed of light. The unassuming particle, It is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass, and able to penetrate the human form undetected, is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor toward their colleagues 730 kilometers away in Italy. The neutrinos arrived promptly. So promptly, in fact, that they triggered what scientists are calling the unthinkable, that everything they have learned, known, or taught stemming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. The issue at stake is a tiny segment of time, precisely 60 nanoseconds, which is 60 billionths of a second. This is how much faster than the speed of light the neutrinos manage to go in their underground travels and at a consistent rate. Even allowing for a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second, this stands as proof that it is possible to race against light and win. The duration of the experiment also accounted for and ruled out any possible lunar effects or tidal bulges in the Earth's crust. Nevertheless, there's plenty of reason to remain skeptical. According to Harvard University science historian Peter Galison, Einstein's relativity theory has been pushed harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Yet each prior challenge has come to no avail, and relativity has so far refused to buckle. So is time travel just around the corner? The prospect has certainly been wrenched much closer to the realm of possibility now that a major physical hurdle, the speed of light, has been cleared. If particles can travel faster than light, in theory, traveling back in time is possible. How anyone harnesses that to some kind of helpful end is far beyond the scope of any modern technologies, however, and will be left to future generations to explore.
So what did you think of this lesson? Did you enjoy reviewing an IELTS article? Would you like me to review more IELTS articles in the future? If so, put yes, yes, yes in the comments so I know you want more IELTS articles. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can download it from my website or you can look in the description for the link. And why don't you get started with your next lesson right now?